Gabbie and I'm a 7th grade purpose student. For my scenario project, I chose to become a gardening expert and learn all sorts of stuff like how to grow plants from seeds, how to grow a beginner garden, and how to maintain healthy plants. I chose to research this topic because it was a topic I didn't know much about and I wanted to know more. My original idea for my project was to plant the vegetable seeds in the greenhouses at school, but due to the coronavirus and schools not being open, I had to look for other options. In order to plant my plants at home, I needed a plant box, which I got from the school, pictured here, to plant my seeds. I was already familiar with this box because we had used it many times in science class. When planting your own vegetables at home, don't be discouraged if you run into a challenge. There's always a way to overcome it and get past it. That's the fun about gardening. It's always a learning process. Now let's get into the first step of starting your garden. Here are the seeds that I chose to plant in my garden. Moon and Stars watermelon, Hungarian hot wax pepper, Roma tomatoes, beefsteak tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, garden bush cucumber, Brussels sprouts, stonehead cabbage, and lastly, a sweet pepper carnival blend. Once you have decided which vegetables you would like to grow, it is now time to plant your seeds. Here are some pictures of my plant's growth over time. As you can see, they started off as just seeds, and all you could see was soil. But after 6 days, cabbage plants sprouted, followed by watermelon. The time it takes for a plant to sprout differs between each plant, but it generally takes between 7 to 10 days. As you can see, I had a whole tray of plants that was not growing by day 15. Using problem solving, I figured out that this was due to the tray not having a way to remove excess water, whereas the other plants did. I replanted the tray with new seeds and within 5 days had plants sprouting. These are what my plants currently look like. Once the weather warms up, they will be ready to go in the garden. I use charts to track the growth of my plants. You might want to consider using some sort of chart like this when planting your own plants, as it helps to keep you organized. I wrote the date along with the number of days it has been since I planted the seeds at the top. I also have a list of all the types of plants along the side. Each day I wrote in the box how tall the plants were, how much water they got, and how many hours of light they got. It is now time for step 2, which is to transfer the plants to the garden. Before planting in the garden, make sure you have an idea of where you want your plants to be located. I sketched out a map of my garden and drew in exactly where I wanted each vegetable to be. I made sure to consider how much space each plant needs to grow. I plan on planting watermelons along the side of the house and hot peppers in their own pot instead of the garden. This is my raised garden. We chose to do a raised garden because of the rocky soil we have in my yard. It wasn't the perfect condition that we needed for my type of garden. Today is May 10th and it has been unseasonably cold. I have yet to plant my plants due to the frost advisory. Here is a picture of my garden before I rototilled it. And here is an after picture. Make sure you rototill your garden as it breaks up the soil and gets it ready for planting. If you're not sure what type of rototiller to use, here is what mine looks like. You can always use a rake too. Before planting, make sure you have the necessary supplies. Here are some supplies that I like to use when planting. Gloves to keep my hands clean, a shovel to dig the holes, garden scissors for any cutting I may need to do, and string to loosely tie the plant to the stake for extra support. You will also need stakes and cages to hold your plants in place, provide them with stability, and give them something to vine on. This is my cucumber area. As you can tell, they take up much space and need many things to vine on. It is now time to transfer your plants into the garden. The first thing you're going to want to do is dig a hole about 4 inches deep. Set the dirt that you dug up off to the side because you will be using it again later. The next step is to place your plant into the hole you just dug. Now, using the dirt that you set off to the side, fill in the hole. You're going to want to create a little mound with the dirt to give your plant extra support. Since this is a tomato plant, I am placing a cage over it. I also added a stake for additional support. Here is the final product. Before you know it, you will have vegetables. Lastly, we have the final step, which is step 3, and that is tips for maintaining your garden. The first tip I have says that it is best to water early in the morning or late at night to reduce moisture loss through evaporation during the day. Also, water the soil, not the leaves, to reduce the chance of fungus forming. The second tip I have is if it is your first time gardening, start with a small garden. A good starting size is 10 by 10 feet. Tip number 3 is to grow plants in soil that is dark, crumbly, and full of life. This provides the perfect soil that your plants need to grow. Also, compost is another way to richen your soil. Tip number 4 is to stop weeds in their tracks and keep them at a minimum. This will give your plants more room to grow. The last tip is to put up a fence or use netting to keep animals out of your garden. Here are some cool gardening facts that I found interesting. The first fact is that when you eat a non-organic apple, you are eating over 30 different pesticides that have been sprayed on the apple. Fact number 2 says that plants like broccoli, rosemary, spearmint, and sage are being used in beauty products to improve the health of your skin and create a natural feeling. The last fact says to save the water that you use for washing the dishes and cleaning vegetables. This is called gray water and can be used to water your garden. I had so much fun researching this topic and I found it so interesting. It is something I can use for the rest of my life as a gardener. I hope you found it useful too and enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!